Real quick before we jump into the video, guys, for the rest of this year I'm going to be on a fundraising campaign to raise a minimum of £1,000 for the Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. For more information on the charity and what it does, and for the donation links, please look in the description below. And thank you all for your continued support. Enjoy the show. What's going on, guys? Rymami Teacher in the house, and I'm here with an age-old debate that keeps coming up on my Twitter, so I wanted to answer it in as kind of an objective and fair way as possible, and also give you my thoughts. Are Pokemon games too easy? Now, this is a question that happens an awful lot of the time, and there's a lot of different factors into why people tend to make these kind of decisions and why they have these opinions. And I kind of wanted to give you about as fair a breakdown as I could to kind of explain my thought process and what I think can happen to kind of ease this debate, I guess you can say. But I'm pretty sure in the Twitter sphere there's always going to be someone that claims the games are too easy, but who knows. So, first question to kind of think about is who's making this claim? Now, something that I've noticed in general as a trend as to who's making this claim actually is that a lot of people are complaining that the games are too easy are people that have been playing the game through multiple generations. People like myself, for example, that have been playing from the very beginning will have gone through all the rough and the smooth transitions through Pokemon into what the game is now. We'll remember the old days where we'll spend ages training in a route, trying to level up our Pokemon and all of that stuff. So we remember all of that because we were there, right? But for people that have kind of not really played the game all that long, you very rarely see that complaint, right? My neighbor's kids play Pokemon and they do not find the games easy at all, right? They don't have all the same baseline knowledge that someone like I have, for example. Now, here's the thing, right? Pokemon, like a lot of these kind of games, are games that the longer you play it, the more knowledge you have. Things like type charts, base stats, EVs, IVs, all of this stuff are things that you learn by playing the game and by learning through experience. Of course, I also play competitive, so there's also the factor there that, you know, because I play competitive Pokemon, I can play through a story relatively easily. That being said, though, when it's not a main series game and when it's a fan game like Xenoverse, which we're doing on Fan Game Fridays over on our Twitch, by the way, link to that in the description, go check me out if you haven't. But it's something to kind of consider, the option that actually, for the casual player or for a player who has just started picking up this game, the game is not going to be as easy as you might think. Now, I did a playthrough last year with Sayora streaming, as she's now known. She was Lady Sayora back then. And that was her very first experience playing a Pokemon game. And we did a co-op Sword and Shield Nuzlocke together. And throughout the whole time, she was constantly asking me the same questions. What type is this Pokemon? Is this move good? What does this move do? Should I teach this move to this Pokemon? And various things like that. She was asking a lot of the baseline knowledge questions that someone like myself or her husband Rob, who's also a fan of the channel now, would already know. So the reality is, it's one of those things where it depends who you ask, is where the Pokemon games are too easy or not. But let's talk about the basis for the claim as well, because a lot of the big common complaints that I see, a lot of people kind of talking about, I've seen a few Reddit threads and stuff like that, a few tweets, people who are talking about this, and one of the biggest complaints I see is the modern EXP share, which I can kind of understand why. I see this claim fairly often, and the EXP share kind of takes a lot of the grind out of the game. So for those of you who don't know, basically, the way the EXP share currently works is that after each battle, every Pokemon in your party gains the same amount of extra EXP. Now, to some people that might seem like a bad thing, but the reality is, for me personally, I actually almost prefer the modern EXP share, for the basic reason that I don't want to be spending all of my time grinding in an area to train up to progress through the game, which is the common problem we had in the early days of Pokemon, where that was pretty much always the case. Now, yes, the argument can be made that, you know, it does take the pace out of the game. It makes the game too fast, so you kind of finish the games quickly. Yeah, that's true. I've seen speedrunners complete Sword and Shield in 4 hours or whatever. Like, I get it. That's fine. But the reality is, that's not a huge deal to me, right? It's not a deal breaker to me to be able to progress through a story. Now, I've been doing a Nuzlocke Gauntlet again over on my Twitch and recorded and uploaded to the YouTube channel here. I've been doing a Nuzlocke Gauntlet from Gen 1 to Gen 8. We're currently in Alola right now, so we're almost done with the Gauntlet. And in the early days, I would have to spend like an hour off screen just like training up my Pokemon ready for the next episode, right? So it does take a lot of time. Nowadays, I don't really have to do that. In the Alola game, aside from the last episode, which if you haven't watched it, you need to watch it, because that was definitely a very interesting moment, and an interesting episode. Aside from that episode, I didn't necessarily have to grind through the game, which was kind of nice in a way, because it meant that the game had a decent amount of progression in it. And I'm okay with that. I hate games that become too grindy myself. But yeah, the XP share is a big problem. I think the other problem is as well is that it's very easy to overlevel in a lot of these games. I found myself subconsciously doing that a few times, particularly in the more recent games. In our current Alola one, we ended up being overleveled for a little bit. That's not necessarily the case now, but we were at the time for the early game. But that's partly because a lot of the trials in Alola were basically like right next to each other, right? So eventually, once you beat those trials, you're going to be pretty high leveled because you're playing through a lot of these battles, which you wouldn't normally do. So yeah, the game is a little bit easier nowadays in that sense because there's a few mechanics changes and stuff like that that have been good, right? The XP share, I think, is probably the big one. The other thing as well, we don't normally, when I talk about Pokemon games in general, I'm not necessarily talking about what you can do after the game, like competitive or anything like that. But generally speaking, like going through the story, yeah, there are certain things that have been added to the game that does somewhat water the game down and make the game a little bit pacier, which is some people's cup of tea and is other people's not, right? Alola kind of tried to change the pace of the game by putting a bunch of cutscenes in, which slowed the game down, so it kind of slowed your progression that way. That didn't really work out too well, let's be honest. It really was not a super good direction, but that did get a little bit better in Sword and Shield, so yeah, definitely interesting to think about. The next thing to kind of think about is who plays Pokemon? Who's the demographic? Now, the problem is, and this is the case with any game that's been around for, you know, a significant period of time, right? Pokemon's been around for 25 years now. And at that point, you're going to have people my age and older. You know, I'm 29 in just over 6 weeks, right? So, you know, people my age, people older than me that have been playing Pokemon from the very beginning. And then you've got little Timmy, who's 4, whose parents are just buying him his Pokemon game for the very first time, right? That's a huge range of people to try to cater a game for. So, what is the Pokemon Company, what is Game Freak, what is Nintendo gonna do? They're clearly gonna try and make these games somewhat challenging for little Timmy, while kind of scaling it down with difficulty in a way, because it's going to be the same game for everybody, for people like me, right? That's just part and parcel of how these games work. Pokemon is, and has always been, intended to be a children's game. So the reality is, a fully grown adult should find the game too easy. I hate to be honest, but that's the truth, right? For people like me, these games shouldn't be that hard, because we've played the game for a long time. We know how the game goes, right? But little Timmy doesn't. Little Timmy didn't play Gen 1, right? So, like, that's what I mean. And in that sense, it does make it a little bit challenging for where you can put the difficulty of these games, because the truth of the matter is, you don't want little Timmy to find the game so hard that he doesn't play it anymore, but you don't want the old grumpy old gits like myself literally just not playing the game anymore because they find it too easy. So it's an impossible situation. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you're the game developer in this instance. But I do think there is a solution for that, which leads us on to our next point, is what can be done about it. So, right now, the Nuzlocke community is pretty strong. You know, people Nuzlocke these games all the time. People like to randomize these games, which is not really how, you know, Nintendo intended for these games to be. But it's a way to incorporate challenge. And I think this is where, you know, even back in the days of Black and White 2, you beat the game, you could unlock challenge mode and play through the game again on a harder difficulty. I don't see why Game Freak and Nintendo and everyone who works on these games can't just decide, you know what, let's add some more budget in, let's actually code in a randomizer mode, much like things like Insurgents and Uranium and pretty much most popular fan games out there have managed to code these kind of modes in. So why not do it yourself? You know these are popular, you might as well do it, and then that way you can appease the people that have been playing for a long time, even if there is the stipulation of, oh, if you play the game as we intended you first, much like it happened in Black and White 2, then at the very least you've experienced the game, right? You know what the game is like, and then you can say, you know what, let's challenge you, right? Here's some settings that you can put on. Go have fun. Do it, right? And I think that's perfectly okay for me. I would say that that's a decent way to kind of try and increase the demographic, because obviously you're not going to expect little Timmy to do a randomizer Nuzlocke, right? That's not going to happen. But little Timmy's going to have fun collecting all the Pokemon. He's going to have fun like training the Pokemon on that he likes, you know, and various things like that. So that's kind of just how it's going to go. So it is possible you can increase your own demographic by adding different things in. Would that necessarily make the game harder? That depends on who you ask. So, last question is, what do you think? I'm going to throw it over to you guys now. What do you think about the Pokemon games? Are Pokemon games too easy, or are they not too easy at all? Are they challenging? Where do you stand on the spectrum? My answer personally is, I think for me, because I've been playing for so long, yes, the Pokemon games, in terms of the base story, in terms of you know, playing through the region, exploring the regions and stuff like that. Yeah, for me personally, right now, I think the games are too easy. However, I'm the person that's been playing for a long time. I'm the person that should expect to find it too easy, because I have a lot of game knowledge already, and that is just how Pokemon goes. Alright, and any game goes for that matter, right? The longer you've played the game, the more you've experienced the game, the more knowledge you have of the game, the easier it's going to be. It's as simple as that, right? So, what do you think? Are Pokemon games too easy, or are they not? Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. But either way, guys, that's going to be it for the video. So thank you all so much for watching. My name is RobBombieTeacher. Stay safe, stay awesome, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.